Good thing I got that right before we recorded.
We call the regular meeting of the Village of Crouse governing body. So this is a hybrid meeting, and I assume they're on Zoom. I would appreciate if you guys would turn your phones off or put them on vibrate. Is that me? And then stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, Councilor Miera,
Sir.
Councilor Woolman,
Here.
Councilor Knight,
Here.
Councilor
Here.
Councilor Murray.
Here.
And do we have John on Zoom or phone or, okay. So, all right. At this time, I'd like to have a moment of silence in memory of the 4 first responders that crashed and gave the ultimate sacrifice to the citizens of the state of New Mexico. Please. Now, I'd like to read a letter that we have sent to Sheriff Manuel Gonzalez III. On behalf of the Village of Corrales, its governing body, fire department, and police department, please accept our sincere condolences on the loss of the 4 county employees in Saturday's helicopter crash. Under Sheriff Larry Corrin, Lieutenant Fred Beers, Deputy Michael Levinson, and Bernalillo County Fire Department Rescue Specialist Matthew King, who at one time was in our village as a member of our firefighters, who made the ultimate sacrifice while on the line of duty. The Village of Corrales has always appreciated the assistance of Bernalillo County, and last had help from Under Sheriff Corrin last year during a missing person search along the Rio Grande. Matthew King, as I stated, was a member of the Corrales Fire Department family, having served as a volunteer firefighter for the village in the early 2000s. Although there were members of different departments at the time of their deaths, their loss will be felt throughout the community of first responders statewide. This incident is a terrible reminder of all the dangers all police, fire, and rescue workers face due to the nature of their work. Families, friends, and colleagues of those who died have our deepest sympathy and unwavering support and respect. Sincerely, James F. Fahey, Jr. You know, it's always terrible to lose a life, and it's even, well, I mean, losing a life is bad regardless. There's no worse, but it's bad. Okay, so before we move on to approval of the agenda, I do have a couple of changes to make to the agenda. We are going to move the meeting schedule for August 16th to August 23rd because of some administrative scheduling problems. And as you'll note, as you read the agenda, there's also a special meeting called for July 26th at 6:30. And that's again, the same thing. It's an administrative reason, although we're going to actually deal with 2 things. So having made those changes to the agenda, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So
Mayor, I
moved.
move we approve the agenda as amended.
Councilor Murray? And
Second.
Councilor Woolman. Okay. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Okay. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Steve Montiel, who is the Transportation Program Manager for the Mid-Region Metropolitan Planning Organization, also known, I think, as the MRMPO. So, Mr. Montiel, would you please come to the podium and tell us how to do it the right way?
All right. We'll see if I can do that here. But thank you, first of all, for having me and for that letter to the BCSO community. I do have a brother who is a sheriff there and very good team there. So thank you so much for that. Mayor, members of the village, Thank you so much for your time. Today, I want to kind of go over a quick general overview of the Mid-Region Council of Governments as well as the Mid-Region Metropolitan Planning Organization. What we do is very technical, so I'm going to try to distill this to the quickest presentation possible. Keep it very general, but do want to offer or extend an invitation to have your staff meet with us to discuss. Or, Councilor Murray, thank you for your participation on the board, as well as Mayor Fahey, thank you so much. But would like to extend that invitation to have you guys meet with our staff so that we can have more technical conversations regarding future funding for roadway projects or bike path projects for the village of Corrales. So with that, I'll go ahead and start. If you can go to the next slide. I do have a video. I'll save this for the very end, or if you guys would like to check this video out on your own time. I know we have a time sensitive agenda today, so we can go ahead and skip through that. But basically, we have an MPO video on our website, just giving you a 5-minute introduction into what we do as an organization. But today's agenda, I want to kind of
Recording in progress.
today's agenda, I kind of want to go in. If you can go back just real quick. Go to. Oops.
Somehow on audit right here.
Oh. Oh, you guys awesome. Go back. All right. So just kind of give you an introduction to today's agenda, just a real quick introduction of what we do, Mr. Cog and Mr. Ampio. Within the same organization, but we are a division of the Council of Governments, the Transportation Metropolitan Planning. Kind of just want to give you a quick growth outlook. We kind of zoom into Sandoval County. Look at our long-range transportation plan, our short-range transportation improvement program, and then the technical services that we provide. Wouldn't mind going to the next slide. So just real quickly to understand the geography, the larger boundary in the blue, that is the Mid-Region Council of Governments boundary. Our area as an MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization, focuses on the red inner boundary. That is the Albuquerque Metropolitan Planning Area, which incorporates the village of Corrales and a southern part of Sandoval County. So it's important to note that, yes, we are the COG, but our area and our division focuses on that smaller geographic boundary that is a large urban area. So Mr. COG is a forum for local, state, tribal governments to collaborate on technical issues, transportation planning, you name it. We do a whole bunch of different types of planning. Let's skip to the next slide. Okay, so this is just the basic umbrella of the COG. COG consists of the MPO, which is why I'm here to talk about transportation planning. We have the Rural Planning Organization, which is everything outside of our geographic boundary. We house the Rio Metro Regional Transit District, which operates the Rail Runner Express, as well as Rio Metro bus services in the rural areas. We have Workforce Connection, which is a state program through our organization. We also offer regional planning. I think you've worked with some of our staff, the regional planning staff, to develop zoning ordinances and site plans, our area plans for your village. And then we also have economic development and agricultural collaborative effort that we house inside of the Council of Governments. Let's get to the next slide. So the Albuquerque metropolitan area, this is what it looks like in the state. It encompasses a little over 3,000 square miles, consists of Bernalillo County, Sandoval County, Valencia County, and we have approximately 40 entities that we work with, 8 of those being tribal governments. So work with a lot of different organizations, entities, as member agencies, a lot of moving parts. Then we have the, basically our area contains the largest population in the state, as well as jobs, which is pretty much a given. So if you mind skipping to the next slide. So what do? The MPO is federally mandated. So we're federally required to be an organization to handle transportation planning. Because we exceed a 50,000 population, the Albuquerque Metropolitan Planning Area is a transportation management area. That means we have more than 200,000 people. So that means we just have a few more requirements federally to fulfill the transportation planning process. Basically what we do is we program federal funds, transit funds, any surface transportation that happens in the region has to go through the MPO and the state and our transit agencies. We also develop a long-range 20-year plan that identifies goals and objectives, strategies, future issues with growth, how we're going to combat those issues, how we're going to address either population growth, population decline, jobs, you name it. So that is a 20-year plan. We update that every 5 years. And then an area that I oversee is the development of the short-range transportation improvement program. So that's a list of all transportation projects that receive federal funds in our area. I have to keep track of that, as well as anything that is regionally significant. So anything that has local funding or state funding and is on a regionally significant arterial or facility that has to be tracked by federal mandate. We go on to the next. This is basically our mission. So the MPO ensures an objective and balanced approach towards analyzing multimodal geographic trade-offs in order to support well-informed regional decision-making and public engagement. And we provide quality data. So we are a data clearinghouse for a lot of transportation and planning needs. Go ahead, next slide. Here's the organizational structure, the governing body of our organization, our Metropolitan Transportation Board. Thank you, Councilor Murray, again, for your participation on that. The village does have a seat in our MTB, as well as our Transportation Coordinating Committee. Those are our two governing bodies. And we have advisory committees. They do a lot of technical planning, anywhere from active transportation planning, intelligent transportation systems, so those message boards you see on the interstates and on major roads. We also have land use transportation integration, so we can work with any of your planning services that you guys offer, zoning services, to get you guys involved in our process. Go ahead and skip to the next slide. So you guys are currently a full voting member. You have full voting privileges. You can submit for project proposals when we do solicit call for projects. And basically you're represented as that one seat. The seats are determined by population on our board. But we have these three status of membership, which is full voting, associate member, non-participating jurisdiction. So we do have some agencies which are non-participating jurisdictions or associate members. They can still apply for projects. It doesn't mean that you can't apply if you're not a voting member. But, all right, so for core products of the MPO, we developed that long-range plan, like I mentioned earlier, our transportation improvement program. We just adopted our unified planning work program for the next 2 years. That basically is a 2-year budget and detailed kind of general overview of what we're going to do as an organization for the next 2 years. And then we have to develop a public participation plan every time we develop one of these, anytime we develop a new MTP or a TIP. Next slide. So here's some of our key collaborators. Obviously, Village of Corrales is one of our key collaborators. We work with Sandoval County, Rio Rancho, City of Albuquerque, and various school districts, you name it. It's fairly extensive and a good group of people for collaborating in agencies. Go ahead and skip. Next slide. All right, going on to our growth outlook. So I'm just going to give you a real preliminary view of the growth outlook for our region and Sandoval County. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So as you can see, we are still growing from 2010 to 2020 after the last decennial census that we had. There's still growth in our region, but that pace of growth has decreased or has decreased significantly since 1980, and really it was stagnant through the 90s, 2010, but really has dropped precipitously. If you can go to the next slide. The reason for that is millennials are choosing to hold off on having kids. They're not having as many kids as the generations before them, and we have an aging population. Also, our net migration, more people are leaving the state than entering the state. So that's something that we have to identify as a key issue for our region. How do we keep and attract people? How do we attract jobs? How do we make this a great place to be, especially if you're coming in, or you want to move here, or you're a native New Mexican, we want to keep you. And so that's one of the areas or one of the issues that we would identify in our long range plan. Next slide. So Bernalillo, Sandoval County. So the net migration really did decrease for Bernalillo County. So a majority of the state's population decrease is related to Bernalillo County. But oddly, on the other end, Sandoval County has grown or has outpaced Bernalillo County with some of that net migration. So you didn't really see a negative loss like we did in Bernalillo County. Next slide. So over the last decade, slowest level of growth In the last 4 decades, we've only added 30,000 people, but for the first time ever, Sandoval County grew by more people than Bernalillo County. It's pretty interesting. A lot of those people are moving to Sandoval County from Bernalillo County or from other areas of the state. But really good to see that Sandoval County, I'm a new resident of Sandoval County, so happy for that number. All right, moving on. Next slide. Our long-range transportation investments. Just kind of want to go over a brief overview. This document is online. You're more than welcome to look at it. It's like 500 pages, so if you're bored and you have trouble sleeping at night, please take a look at that. Long-range transportation. Next slide. So what is our long-range plan? Long-range plan is a 20-year plan. It's updated every 5 years. Our current plan is the 2040 Connections Plan. And that was adopted 2 years ago. So it's 2 years old. We'll be revisiting that here in about another year or so. So we're constantly updating that. It's never static. It's always changing. But it really does look at our challenges and proposes strategies for those challenges for the future. It also analyzes future travel demand where there's a lot of congestion. River crossings, we know being on this side of the river, that is an issue. Analyzes growth, development, and then it looks at, so basically we track a list of projects for the next 20 years. We work with every agency to identify what are your regional needs or what are your transportation needs over the next 20 years. So that way you can get that tracked into the long range plan. And then as funding becomes available and the need for that project becomes available, we can see the consistency with the plan and hopefully get it funded. Next slide. So here's some figures. Basically what we're doing, we're required by the federal government to fiscally constrain our long range plan. What does fiscal constraint mean? It means we can't spend more than what we're going to be given or what is more than what will be programmed for the future. So we have to look out 20 years, best estimate on the amount of revenue we're going to receive for transportation improvements. So we meet with all of our agencies. We have a little bit over $11 billion identified for all transportation needs. But for fiscal constraint, we have to take out maintenance and operations. That can't be factored into fiscal constraint. So we're looking at just capital improvements, new investment. When you really cut out the operations and maintenance, we're left with about $4.9 billion of public funds for our roads. That sounds like a lot, but quite honestly, we're struggling. Project costs have increased significantly, just like homes, just like materials, like a 2x4, everything has increased significantly.
Could you tell us what private funds are? It's twice as much as state funds.
Yeah, so private funds are like any of the private developers who are developing roadways, and we can't identify public roads or funds for those. They have to commit private funds to get those into our transportation plan. So when we're talking about fiscal constraint, that only applies to the public dollars.
So if someone's building a housing development or something,
Yes, so a
The
major housing
infrastructure,
development
yeah.
out in Rio Rancho, out on the west side, at Mesa del Sol, they would have to identify roads that would be on the federal aid system or future federal aid system. And so that's a way we track those improvements, but we have to factor that out with fiscal constraints. So we're only looking at the public dollars. But really, when we're left with it, this has to be fiscally constrained. So we asked all the agencies, what are your needs for the next 20 years? All the projects. We programmed those in and we had a target or a revenue stream of 4.9 million. We came in under almost 500,000. So cutting it close there with fiscal constraints. So we were almost balanced. Next slide. This seems like a lot here, but I basically want to point your direction to the top right, the combined amounts. So what we do is we look at breaking down the amount of funding in the long range plan over the next 20 years. $506 million or 10.28% will go towards the east side. The area in red, that takes the majority of the funds. That's all transit projects, regionally significant projects on the interstate. We don't count those towards east versus west. Yes, most of the interstate system is on the east side of the river, but those are regionally significant projects. But 58% of those funds will go towards projects like interstate improvements or interchanges. The blue area west of the river, this is important for you all to know because this impacts Corrales. 21.96% of the funding for the next 20 years is anticipated to go west of the river. We don't put this together to pit east side versus west side or north versus south. It just shows how we need to work as a region. Next slide. And yeah, regionalism is huge. So when we look at commute flows and where they're coming from, over 44,000 people enter Bernalillo County to commute for work or different reasons each day. So it's important that we work as a region. We don't battle each other, we work together as a region to help identify which needs need to be funded. Next. So approximately 44 to 45,000. All right, the short range transportation investment program or improvement program is an area that I manage, and my colleague here, Claudia, is learning and is in training to assist me with the management of this program. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Transportation Improvement Program is a federally mandated short-range program. We're talking about 6 years. This isn't the 20-year program. This is 6 years of projects that are anticipated to get funding. So if you're in the Transportation Improvement Program, more than likely you will receive funding for your improvement. It covers that 6-year period. We update the Transportation Improvement Program every 4 years. We also we have to track all federal highway projects, transit projects, bicyclists, pedestrian projects, you name it, everything that impacts surface transportation, which means we're not monitoring the plans or anything. Anything that impacts surface transportation on the federal aid system has to be tracked in this Transportation Improvement Program. Next slide. So here's our current Transportation Improvement Program, 2020 to 2025, covers that 6-year period. We have it in order by lead agency that has funding. Obviously, NMDOT, Department of Transportation, takes the cake with the most funds in the Transportation Improvement Program. They're operating most of the interstate system, followed by Rio Metro, City of Albuquerque. But one thing I don't see here is a Village of Corrales project. We've had Village of Corrales projects in the past, and we want to make sure that we are reaching out to you guys, that you guys participate in our next call for projects that will be happening this fall. We'll be soliciting for project proposals, and we want to make sure that we can get some of your needs in there. It's a great opportunity to apply. You guys are a member agency, and we'd like to see how we can assist the Village of Corrales through our process. Next slide. So that's a little over $1 billion worth of investment in the next 6 years for this project. Here's a similar slide. East receives about 12.49%, about $128 million goes to the east. Regional projects, once again, interstate transit, regional wide projects take a bulk of the funds at 52%. But the west of the river, if you combine west of the river in Sandoval County and west of the river in Bernalillo County, 16.47%. So the west is outpacing the east a little bit. That's where a lot of the growth is happening. It's on the west side of things. But it's just important to look at the comparison. Sometimes we get questioned, why does the east side get more funding? Well, it's not necessarily the case. When we break it down, the west side, the western portion of our Albuquerque metropolitan planning area is getting a significant chunk of those federal dollars. Next. All right, so I can't just wave a magic wand and give you guys money. There is a process. We have a project selection process, which is transparent, quantitative, collaborative, and it's based on the goals of our long-range plan as well as federal goals. So as much as I would like to help out everybody, give everybody a piece of the pie, it doesn't work that way. We got to make sure that we develop a transportation improvement program as a region. So it is all the agencies working together, those 40 agencies coming together to identify which projects best meet the goals and objectives of our long-range plan, as well as any federal goals that we're required to fulfill. Next slide. And some of those federal goals are like reducing fatalities, so safety is a priority, maintaining our current roadway network or transit network in a state of good repair. So making sure that we are not just building new without taking care of our existing infrastructure. That is critical. Reducing traffic congestion is pretty important. Making sure freight network is taken care of. The environment, as well as reducing project delivery delays. So we want to make sure that we're using these federal dollars efficiently and timely to make sure that we get these improvements on the ground. Next slide. All right, technical services. So we're not just here for the Transportation Improvement Program or the Long Range Plan. We do offer assistance, technical assistance to our member agencies. Next slide. The first one being demographic profiles. We specialize in data. We are a data clearinghouse. Socioeconomic data is available to the Village of Corrales if you're ever putting plans together or grants for future dollars. Please come talk with us or work with our staff. We want to make sure that we can help you all out or your staff all out to make sure that you guys apply for those grants and have the most sufficient data. Next slide. We also offer traffic counts. So the Mid-Region Council of Governments, you'll notice that there's tubes in the road every once in a while with a little box. We perform those counts for our area. We can do those counts for the village. You probably notice them here on Main Street every once in a while. But we can do special counts for any events that you have. If you let us know in advance, we're more than happy to do that for the Village of Corrales. We can also do non-motorized counts. So if you have a facility where bicyclists and pedestrians are using and you want to, we can set up our camera to make sure that we get counts for the village. So you have adequate data for when you apply for future grants. So that is another service that we can offer. Next slide. We also collect safety and crash data. So from the state, we work with the University of New Mexico to collect all that data. But if you are applying for safety funds, or you have a safety project you want to identify to the state DOT, we can help you collect that data for your facilities. So that is another option and important for grants as well. Next slide. We also do accessibility analysis in-house. So we have it's called our transportation accessibility model, where we're able to put in commute sheds for fire departments, police departments. We've done this for Bernalillo County, AFR, you name it. We're able to, if they're thinking of a new site for a fire station or a police station, a substation, we're able to do that analysis for you all just to see where the best place or location would be in the village. We're also able to track like a service, how many people can access a particular service or a particular business and do time sheds around that. So that's another service that we offer. Next, a couple more slides here. We do travel demand forecasts. We can do this for the village and see where things are going to clog up in the future, where it's going to get really congested within the village. But we're able to do forecasts for like 5, 10, 15, 20-year intervals if needed. Next, we also do GIS, which is Geographic Information Services, and mapping assistance or cartography assistance. If you guys are ever in a position where you need assistance with spatial data, looking at different layers, we do all that. We have a really good GIS team in-house where we can help you with any of the demographic data that you received from this last decennial census. We can put that into maps for you. Please just reach out to us. We're more than happy to assist in any way possible. And then last but not least, we have so we collect orthophotography every 2 years. We do flights. We manage that program. So we have the most accurate data, which could be useful for the Village of Corrales if you guys are trying to plan where a park is going to be, plan where a fire station is going to be. That's something that we can offer. We have a group of about 12 to 15 agencies that put in or fund this project every 2 years. But it's really critical to the planning work that we do. We also do elevation LiDAR data that we can provide for the county. So we can look at tree canopies. We can assess where the urban heat island effect is taking place. All those different things we can offer for you. And last but not least, my contact information. Our transportation planning and technical services manager is Kendra Montanari. She apologizes that she couldn't be here tonight. She had a vacation plan. Hey, I guess we all need a little vacation every once in a while. And then I'm more on the transportation finance side of things, so finance and administration. And then I manage all the boards that take place for the Metropolitan Planning Organization. That is my contact information. If you do want to reach out to us, we'd love to work with your staff, and we're going to be putting out a call for projects. So if you guys want to apply, we'd be happy to show your staff, planning staff, your public works staff, how to apply, how to go through the process, and then even just look at eligibility for some of the proposals. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for having me. I stand for any questions.
Yes, Bill.
Yeah, just one quick question.
Yes.
You mentioned the importance of safety as far, and you also mentioned one of your areas of responsibility is pedestrians. We know that the Albuquerque area is #1 in the country, #2 in the country, it fluctuates. Is there anything proactively being done in pedestrian safety?
So, yes, Counselor Waldman.
Waldman, yeah.
So right now, we are currently, so we're required by the federal government to put together performance measures and performance targets. And if we don't meet those performance measures and targets, then we are, we're still waiting to see what happens. Maybe we'll be dinged with federal dollars or whatnot, which seems counterintuitive because you want to make sure you can address the issue. But one thing we're doing as an organization is we're trying to adopt a resolution where we make safety a main priority when we're putting together a transportation improvement program. So putting forward some form of a resolution together to address safety, and that it will always be considered when funding projects or when looking to fund projects. That's something we're doing. We're also having talks about maybe a safety set aside. So we dedicate a certain portion of funding toward safety improvements every 6 or every 4 years when we develop a tip. We make sure, hey, we're going to guarantee $2 to $3 million go towards safety. That's still in the talks. We're trying to work that out as we speak. I think you guys, Councilor Murray, you participated in that meeting. Another thing that we're looking at is applying for a Safe Streets for All grant through the federal government. So we're trying to adopt an action plan for the region. So that's one way we think we can help. You have to have an action plan in place in order to apply for capital improvements. So if we can adopt an action plan as an MPO for all of our member agencies, that gives you a little bit more access to those additional funds for capital improvements. So that's one way we're looking at doing that. But yes, definitely safety is always considered, and it's in our projects, our project selection process.
Is there anything in the infrastructure bill specifically for pedestrian safety? Do you know?
So it would be the Safe Streets for All, which is
Okay.
a discretionary grant program out of the bipartisan infrastructure law. And then the state of New Mexico, if I may, they do have a highway safety improvement program funding source. So the reason why we say we have technical services for safety or crash data is because you need to have that quantitative data to have a good project or to bring forward a proposal to the state DOT.
Stuart?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Councilor. So thank you, Steve, for coming tonight. So I understand there's a new project selection process being rolled out next month. Is that correct?
Correct.
Which simplifies the application process. Also, how long does it take when you submit an application in the tip selection? How long does that usually take? Do you know?
So you mean for it to go through, like
Yeah, to
for
go
an
through the
agency
tip.
to submit, like
Yeah.
that will take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour to submit a proposal. We ask that you guys kind of, maybe meet with us first to kind of go over some things to expedite that. But when you do submit, we're going to probably have a call for projects in September. We collect all those projects. So we have the call to go out, and then the deadline is around Thanksgiving time, or right before we get into winter, probably end of November, early December is when we close off. We have a deadline to submit projects, and then our staff evaluates those for about a month or two, and then we start kicking off weekly transportation program technical meetings. So that's all the agencies meeting weekly to go over the scoring process. We review the scores. We have the agencies present on their projects. So they give a qualitative reasoning for their project, or they make the case qualitatively for why it's important to their community. So that usually takes, the whole tip development process probably takes about 9 months.
Also, with the advent of electric vehicles becoming more prevalent, have you had any feedback that you've given back to the federal government about the loss of money because of the reduction possibly of gas tax money, whereas the electric vehicles won't be paying that? I just wanted to have you talk to the feds about, how they're going to rectify and maybe compensate for those electric vehicles that are coming on the road.
Yes, and so one way we're looking at that the gas tax has not been modified since like the early 90s. I want to say 1990. When the first Jurassic Park,
93.
93, when the first Jurassic Park movie came out. I think that's when the last time it was updated. So that's been quite some time. I believe some of the state officials are looking at a user fee I know there's like Oregon and some other states, I think it's Oregon and Utah have user fees by mileage traveled, which, you know, if you're driving an electric vehicle, that's one way for those users to pay into the process for roads, because that's the majority of the transportation fund is funded through that gas tax. So how do we do that if cars are becoming more efficient? You know, these are all the problems that we're faced with, and then project costs are skyrocketing right now. It's out of this world. We have never seen cost increase 30–40%. So I'll give you an example. The Montgomery I-25 interchange that's planned right now, it's a DOT project. That started off at 65 million, jumped up to 85, went up to 150. I think we're approaching 200 million to complete that interchange. That's what we're seeing.
Thanks, Steve.
Anybody else? So I have a question.
Yes.
Is there some restriction or limitation of a municipality from doing an improvement on a road that goes through their community that doesn't actually belong to that municipality, such as a state highway?
So if it's not on the federal aid system and that is under your jurisdiction, you should be able to work with the county and yourself, and I guess your agency. I think
So-
coordination is always a good
So what
thing.
if you don't get much cooperation or coordination with the state that owns the road?
So if the state owns a facility, then yes, you have to coordinate with them and get their.
So even though it may have some safety issues.
Yep.
We can't pull you guys in to give us some help.
No, that's a great opportunity. So bring us into the process so we can start having meetings with the Department of Transportation, the village, Sandoval County. That's one way, that's the best way to start doing that, is to have that communication, to work with the district engineers. We work closely with the district office, or district DOT, as well as the general office up in Santa Fe. So attending the transportation program group, having staff, technical staff available at our committee meetings, and then attending the TCC and the MTV meetings is critical. You can bring up those issues there and address that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Just on your point, Mr. Mayor, does that assume then that we have to use federal monies to achieve the, what the mayor was talking about?
Not necessarily. So there are alternative funding revenue sources. So the state has a capital outlay. You could always use that. Local government funds, but also there is a local government transportation road fund that the state puts out where they help some of the smaller governments, because with federal dollars you have to come up with a local match. There's a local match. So the government's paying, you know, say they say you get $100. Well, we're only going to fund $85 of that $100. You have to come up with the other $15 on your own. So yeah, there are other revenue streams. Talk with us. That's one way to identify future revenue streams. Money is tight, but when you are working on another jurisdiction's roadway, yeah, you got to incorporate them into the process. DOT, I think it's a good practice to keep them involved. You guys had a project, I think it was a Meadowlark bike ped project at one time. And I think maybe that's where some of that's coming from, but I think you guys have a whole new administration, new council. I think it'd be a good opportunity to reconnect with the Department of Transportation. And we'd be more than happy to assist with that. We have a great working relationship with the locals and the DOT. So we can kind of serve as a liaison between you and the DOT.
Anyone else? Steve, thank you so much.
Thank you so
for coming.
much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, has everybody gotten his contact information?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so next we'll move on to the administrator's report. Mr. Kerr.
First thing, as usual, on the administrator's report, it's Tanya giving a COVID update.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll give you an update on COVID. I had hoped that we were gonna see a drop. We kind of had a little bit of drop in the village, but then it's really holding steady. We are above last month's average. We are at 3.32 cases per day. I think last time, and it is in your packet, it was like 3.29 cases per day. And those, remember, are only lab tested and can be anywhere between 3 and 10 times greater. We are still in high on the CDC community map. And that does mean that it's recommended for masking indoor public transportation. We're running 318 people per 100,000 testing positive. We have a 5.5% hospitalization in Sandoval County. Or 5.5% of the people in the hospital are with COVID in Sandoval County. Deaths today were 37. I didn't start tracking daily deaths until March, and we haven't had that high during that period of time. And they've been running in the mid to high 20s the last couple of days. We only had 907 cases today in the state, but that was still an 18.8% positivity rate. And Sandoval County today had 76. I'm getting this week, starting this weekend, I was getting a lot of phone calls from people who had tested positive, but couldn't find their physician, or their physician wasn't sure if they qualified for Paxlovid, and had to send some to CVS, and CVS's telemedicine was down. So that put another hiccup in it. Today was a great day. We did our first round of booster completing series of Moderna for kids 6 months to 5 years old, 39 of them. Very happy parents came in all the way, some from Santa Fe, several of them. We've already started second shots for 5, but it is a 3-shot series. And people came in from Taos, even for their second shots. So that was really good to see. So I don't see us slowing down. What it looks like is happening is the BA1, BA2 variants came through and increased us. And now BA5, BA4 are going to probably keep us increased for a while. And remember that BA4 and 5, having a previous infection, especially with Narda Omicron, does not protect you very much more from getting COVID. The booster shot seems to be doing better. Novavax meeting was today, but I wasn't on because we were vaccinating and had other meetings. But Novavax looks like it may be coming out for some people to be able to use, and it's a subunit protein with an adjuvant. So that might get some other people to use that vaccine. Monkeypox, we have 6 cases in the state of New Mexico now. I do know that 5 of those cases were from travel to other areas and contact in other areas not picked up here. No information on that 6th case yet. The state does have enough vaccine to vaccinate 133 people right now and plans to order more. Remember that monkeypox, you can get it respiratory wise, but you need to be really close, like touching or kissing or hugging or cuddling to get it respiratory. But it does transmit from the secretions and the lesions, and it is a good fomite. Where COVID is not a good fomite, it is a good fomite and lives on surfaces for quite a while. So clean your surfaces, because I don't think monkeypox is going anywhere anytime soon. It really looks like we missed the chance to shut it down. And I'll be happy to sit for any questions.
Tanya, it looks pretty good. Thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Tom.
welcome. Thank you, guys.
Just an update on the trail on the south side of Meadowlark. I think I mentioned that to you before. We've sent out 10 certified letters to the residents there. We've had responses from 6 or 7 of them at this point, and we will be contacting them in person if possible to explain, because each property is a little bit different, and we'll being willing to sit and visit with them about what their options are legally, and any costs that involve that the village will be taken care of in the process. There's a couple of them that are going to be initially a little challenging, but I think that if we approach it correctly, we'll get it done. But the whole process will be determined if we can get some sort of a consensus along the way with each property. But I'm going to remain optimistic on that. So that's the update on Meadowlark.
Ron, excuse me, Mayor, could I ask a quick question related to that? do we have any sense on what the costs might be related to these 10 properties? I mean, I know we haven't probably done a full assessment of that, but just looking at them and thinking about what we might have to do, do we have any ballpark on what we may have to spend to accomplish what we need to accomplish?
Counselor, no, because it depends, it depends on the property itself and the changes. There's a couple of properties that have gates on them and they may have to have their gate lowered for the vision requirements. And if they do that, then there'd be more expense. We have some property owners that have concerns that their property was damaged during the course of the repaving. And we don't believe that's the case, but we'll address that as we can. But we don't have a cost. When we get out there and start talking to him, our engineer, Steve Groman, will be out there doing some surveying this next week. Just kind of looking at everything and seeing, and that survey will start to develop the cost analysis that we'll be putting into it.
But it sounds like we could be not in the 5-figure range, but maybe more if there's gates. And I mean, it sounds like this could be a significant addition to a previously approved project, correct?
It could be. And so, but we have some funding for it. We've been defederalized from this so that we can do this without having to follow federal DOT requirements. And so, but it's going to be a neighbor by neighbor approach that we have to take. And that's really the only way you can do it. But the whole purpose of doing this and getting us in the site vision, so as people turning out onto Meadowlark and have to being able to see both directions as they turn out onto the road or across the pathway. Melanie will be sending out, I believe, tomorrow to all of the committee chairs. We have a number of committees, as you guys are all aware, and we'll be asking them to prepare quarterly reports from these committees so that the quarterly reports can be presented to the governing body so that y'all can know exactly what's going on out of those committees. And so we hope to see that first quarterly report probably around the 1st of September. And the last thing I want to mention, sadly, is that the pool will be closing on August 7th. And because the reason why is that most of our lifeguards that work there will be going back to school around that period of time. And so the pool will be shut down. This is not an early shutdown. This is the normal time that the pool shuts down, even though there's quite a bit of summer left. Lynn has been out there on the guard chair himself the last few days at one time or another because of the guards are starting to head back to school and have other things on mind than their summer jobs. So just keep that in mind if you're going to be doing any more swimming or your family's going to be any more swimming over there. One good news is that he sold out, they have private pool parties available that the village is able to have for them on Friday and Saturday and Sundays. And those sold out almost immediately at the beginning of summer. They've had to issue some refunds for one reason or another, usually because of weather, but it's been a successful year for the pool. That's all I have there.
Okay. So Melanie, did John ever check in?
Not yet.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on to counselors forum. Counselors? Melanie, excuse me, Mel. Jeez.
Well, I just need to say that I'm kind of disappointed that the residential roads and drainage and storm flood hazard migration is so low on the list, because that was my #1 pick. And the reason living on the west side.
Actually, we're going to discuss that when we get to the ICIP, if you want to do it then.
Okay, either way, I just want to.
Well, it's sort of what we tell people who come in for a Coriolanus forum, we're going to discuss something that's not on the agenda. And so it's more appropriate to do it when we get to the
So we
agenda
are
item.
gonna talk about it. Okay.
You can talk about it then.
Sweet.
We'll make sure. Yes.
I just want to thank the Chief Vic for, we had some concerns on Sagebrush Drive about speeding beyond a turn on a straightaway. Within 2 days of my conversation, there was an electronic sign put up. We don't know yet whether or not it's effective. We think it is, but also patrols. And it's a great response. And I really, really appreciate that for everyone. So thank you.
Yes, Stuart.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, councilors. Just as a side note, we're still having issues down the south end with the Salt Yard West facility. It's still making a lot of noise on the weekends when they have live events. We're pursuing various options right now to see what we can do from the south end of Corrales, also the Skyview Acres group, and there are several areas up in Rio Rancho that are affected just as well. There's a meeting tomorrow night at the Skyview, their association, and we're going to see what we can do about that. As Steve said, the MTP, the only thing we did last meeting was we approved the uniform work processes. Like you alluded to, that was about basically it describes everything they do for the feds, and they have to do it 5 times a year. It's a live document. So that was the only thing we did in the meeting. Also, it was Joan Hashimoto and some of the bicyclists from the Bicycle Advisory Committee have noted that in the Bosque, apparently there have been motorbikes seen. There was a picture posted in next door of a motorbike in the Bosque. And I understand that there was a police report filed with the Corrales PD for that. Joan, when I sent you the email about sending either a police car or a fire department vehicle down the Bosque area, Joan responded, thought a police car would be better, mainly because it might intimidate them more. I don't know, but if we could send a unit down once a day, random times, just enough to keep them off guard, maybe we can, maybe we can discourage those bikes from entering. Somehow they're getting around the barriers that we have, and they're ignoring the signs. Some of the signs also have, Joan had put up stickers alluding to e-bikes and skateboards, electric skateboards. Some of those stickers have been removed from the sign. So I am going to request an additional funding for replacement of signs when we get to talk about budget. Thank you.
Chief, we talked about this. Yes, Mel.
I had a constituent call me about the signs that were put in the Bosque. He asked me if the council okayed them to put in the Bosque. And if, I don't know if the Bosque Commission should be able to just put up signs when they want without letting us know.
No, it's the entrance signs that are currently placed there. And the concern is with e-bikes, any motorized vehicle being allowed in the Bosque is really prohibited. E-bikes and electric skateboards really haven't been addressed. The technology is outstripping our governmental regulations, and we need to be able to control that. And so I'm sure they'll probably come up and talk about it.
And to respond, I don't recall ever when I was on the council approving signage in the Bosque.
I'm sorry,
I
what?
say, I don't remember ever approving signage in the Bosque when I was on the council. So I'm not quite sure how the signage gets up.
Okay, yeah, I did have somebody call me about that, one of my constituents, because he doesn't like the signs, but
It may be an administrative decision, either through MRGCD or in, association with MRGCD at some previous administration. I don't know that answer. We can certainly, there she is. She's writing a note right now. She's going to check it out. So we'll find out.
okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, well, let's move on to Corralinos Forum.
First up, we have Mr. Kurt Flora. You could please state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Kurt Flora, licensed manager in Mexico. Mayor and councilors, again, a couple weeks ago, you guys went into closed session to discuss our issue. Apparently, nothing has been resolved or even come close to being resolved. I thought of a factor to show you all the things that I have been talking about for the last 4 years. Well, actually 3 years. And I can prove everything on these signs here. Let's see if the people can see it. But everything on this poster board here has happened. Really happened. And I can prove everything on this poster board that has happened to us. I have the documentation.
The people on Zoom won't be able to hear you if you aren't on the mic.
I just want to be able to read this also.
You can hold it if you want to walk around.
You know, I'm just astonished that, you know, we went in, you know, we gave you a fair, you know, we asked for a fair, what do you call it, a fair
Settlement?
agreement, you know, between us. And you guys denied it, or won't even talk about it, or whatever. But if this continues, the Court of Appeals, once then, we get the date for the Court of Appeals, there'll be no more negotiation from that point on, the day that court date is set. There'll be no more negotiation, we will not negotiate from that point on. From this point on, I think what we are asking is a very fair price of our damages. I think y'all ought to consider it seriously, because if we go to the Court of Appeals, we're gonna have some- My remaining time, you at home. Everything on this page right here, we can prove happened. We have the documentation. to prove it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Flora.
All right, and next is Miss Janet Blair, representing the Corrales Equestrian Advisory Committee.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Janet Blair, and I live in Saks District at 1224 Andrews Lane. And as Melanie says, I am representing the Corrales Equestrian Advisory Commission. I am one of two co-chairs. Mayor, Administrator Curry, councilors, I have a couple of issues tonight. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the village for an excellent 4th of July parade. How wonderful it was to be back on the street for the 4th of July, with the horses and the bands and everything. We think that the Park and Recreation team did an excellent job of getting this organized. I was flabbergasted by the number of people who were there. I estimate there must have been thousands who were watching our parade. Number two, I wanted to let you all know that SEAC and CHAMP and some other folks are working together to issue an equestrian microchipping clinic. This came as a result of the fire chief's admonition that we need to identify our horses should any of them get escaped during an evacuation. We need to be sure that the animals can easily be identified. In coordination with CHAMP, we have secured a discounted microchipping. I didn't know they did that for horses, but they do. A discounted cost to have this done, and we are hoping that we can secure the Popcorn Arena in early August. We're going to do this by appointment. It will be approximately $50 per animal. Dr. Drawley has agreed to do this for us. And we're looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a great improvement in the safety of our animals. Third, I'd like to thank you for your continued support for the lighted crosswalks. We really think this is very important. The gentleman from Mr. Cobb was talking about this. Pedestrian, equestrian, and bicycle safety is very crucial, and as Corrales Road becomes more congested, we really feel that these signs, these lighted signs, are so important for our village as a matter of public safety. And thirdly, I would like to also urge you to take action on the motorized vehicles on the ditch roads and in the Boston. And I think through increased enforcement, if we have more police presence, we think this would be a major improvement. I can tell you that,
That's your time.
I can tell you that the Bosque Advisory Commission was talking about changing and improving the signs at the entrances to the Bosque at their latest meeting. I don't believe they're talking about signs in the Bosque. And I will stand for any questions if you have any. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
And that's everybody for the Corralenos Forum this evening.
So next, we're moving to the consent agenda. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at all the items on the agenda, but please spend a little time looking at them and see if there's something you would like to remove from the consent agenda. And if not, then I need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Stuart?
Mayor, I'd like to pull number 5, the adoption of the final fiscal year budget.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I need a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda
So moved.
Second.
in a second. So Zach made the motion and Mel made the second. So is there any additional discussion about any of these things? Okay. There usually isn't discussion about the consent agenda. How do you vote? Counselor Miera,
Yes.
Counselor Woolman,
Aye.
Counselor Knight,
Aye.
Counselor Burkett,
Aye.
Counselor Murray.
All right.
Okay, Stuart, you have the stage.
All right, thank you. Let me just see if I can get it pulled up here real quick. Couple things I'd like to add to the budget if we can. If we don't, maybe we can handle it some other way. The Bicycle Advisory Commission would like to add $1,000 for their recreation fair that they're scheduling for next April. I don't think they got that in. I don't think they were aware at that time, but they probably needed to do that. Also, as Janet alluded to, the signs at the entrance to the Bosque need to be updated. The talk of the e-bikes and the electric skateboards need to be included in the, as one of those exclusions in the Bosque. I sent an email to the chief, actually to, well, anyway, the end result is Chief Martinez is the one's probably more responsible for getting those signs made. He needs at least about $3,000 more to get that done. I don't know if that was ever discussed in the budget request at that time, but that would allow at least 8 big signs to be replaced at the entrances to the Bosque, and then there are 4 smaller ones, I believe, as well. So if we could do that, that would be great.
So Ron, correct me if I'm mistaken. We have discussed providing funds for different commissions and committees who have asked for it.
Right.
And there are some issues legally, and we'll have to run this by Randy Audio because that was one of the problems.
Well, I think in Lynn Sievert's budget, it was put in as supplies. And I think that, they ought to be compensated for any expenses that they incur because they are volunteers. We approve them. So they're kind of, to me, they're quasi.
So I don't even know if we need to add that to the budget per se. We can see if we are allowed to do it. And we do have some revenue from last year. What do you think?
Mayor, Councilor Murray, I think perhaps the best way to do it for that amount of money, and we've done this for some other committees where they, in the past, and even going forward into this fiscal year, when they've had smaller amounts of money like what you're talking about, we try to do it administratively.
Yeah.
By if we have the money, then we'll try to do it administratively. If we need to do a budget adjustment, then we could bring it to the council.
Okay, either way, I would like to just make sure that they get compensated within, for any expenses.
So Raina, would this be an item that would need a budget adjustment resolution? If it's like, 3,000, 2,000, something like that.
Mayor, councilors, I would just like to make a point. Your budget needs to be approved and submitted by July 31st. So if we make a change now to it, I don't know, do we have time to put it on next agenda?
Well, it could go on the special meeting agenda next Tuesday.
Well,
If you have time to do it before Friday.
but I would prefer not to put it in the budget if it's a relatively small amount of money. And I don't know if there's
Do a budget adjustment after it's approved.
Say again?
We could do a budget adjustment after it's approved.
That's better. Yes. Because it probably won't be anytime soon that we're, giving any money, so we can certainly do that. Okay,
Do the budget adjustment, is that correct?
but we'll do it after we submit
Right.
the final budget.
Right. But
Because we're not going to be spending that money anytime soon. And once we identify how we have to go about doing it and how much is involved,
okay,
then we'll do the budget adjustment
Right.
resolution, if necessary.
okay,
Is that okay?
yeah, so. Raina,
Anybody have
while
any
you're-
problem with that? Okay, go ahead.
While you're up there, while I was looking through the budget, I noticed that like on page, I think it's 55 of the PDF, under the road co-op, but we don't have any revenue, but we have expenses. I'm just curious, how, is that left over from last year or is that, I think it's like page 50 of the document, but page 55 of the PDF.
Can you tell me the fund number?
Yeah, 304/2116. It's the road co-op.
Sorry, I'm working with two budgets here.
It's page 50, right?
Yeah, that's what's on the page number, but it's like on the PDF, it's like page 55. At least when I,
55 on mine.
Try page 50 on yours, Raina.
yeah, probably is
50?
page 50. You print-
304/2116. We have expenditures of 15,000.
Yes,
The 15,000 in red, right below it, the negative
Right.
number, that's a transfer in.
from where? I mean, that's one of the things that kind of threw me is that account code 51,000 is kind of a generic account code for transfer in and out. I'm just curious, is that part of the budget process? Is it's money transferred to cover the funds or the expenditures on that particular item?
It's from. I don't
Isn't
remember.
the road co-op fund a NMDOT?
No, it's getting transferred from. We get a little bit of money in one of our DRTs and it gets transferred from there.
Okay,
I just cannot tell you what fund it is right now. Do you wanna me to take a minute
mean,
and come back to this?
I don't
So
have any
is
problem.
this we can certainly investigate all that. Is this critical
No,
to your
it just-
decision?
it's Just questions in my mind because there was about 3 or 4 other where the 51,000 account code was used. And I really have no idea where it's coming from. It just says transfer in and out. So I'm just curious, just where is that money coming from that's going to be used in that particular set of funds? Also, there was one too that there were several pages in the budget where there is no money at all allocated either in revenue or expenditures. Are they just placeholders? Is that the intent?
No, I actually
Most of
leave it
those
there
are.
just so you can see the actual numbers when there was in the prior year. If there was
Okay.
anything in the prior year, I leave it. And if you like, next year I could take it out. So if you all tell me how you want it.
I mean, if it's not necessary, I don't know why we even include it.
So that 15,000 comes from my page 33, Fund 2162116.
Okay.
This is a gasoline tax. We get 1% in our DRT. We get it in there and we move it to that 304
Okay,
for roads.
okay. And this is not really critical to the budget, but I'll email you the rest of my questions and then
Okay,
you
yeah.
can answer them.
Anytime.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because we've already really kind of gone over this once.
Well,
And I understand it's a lot of stuff to digest.
I think during our initial budget discussions, we only had a flat sheet with the major revenue and expenditures. by
Right, that's a
department.
good point. We didn't have all the funds.
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
that's my only point.
Yeah, this has already been up to DFA for a review, right?
Yes. the
And it's
preliminary
been sent
budget
back down to
was-
us for approval. So that's what we're doing tonight.
And then I'll submit it a second time.
Yeah.
after tonight.
So
Thank you, Mayor.
it gets several looks before it actually comes to pass. Oh, and I wanted Raina to tell you exactly compared to this budget for 22-23, how much in excess revenue did we receive last year, 21-22?
We Ron, there was 1 point. I think we were budgeted 5.9 this last fiscal year we just ended, and I believe we got 7.
7.6.
7.6.
So we had a revenue of $1.7 million greater than our budget. And we are still, if we complete this budget as budgeted, we'll have over $800,000 from last year's revenue sitting in the bank. So things are really, yeah, tell everybody to shop online because that's apparently where it all came from.
Well, I do my part all the time.
Yeah. Okay, so yes, sir.
Question on that. So where does that money sit then, that 800,000?
In
Can
the
that be
LGIP.
moved into LGIP?
Yes,
Excellent. Okay.
correct?
It's sitting in Wells Fargo right at the moment.
Well,
And then after we get through with the audit toward December, then we'll be moving it, if you choose, to LGIP. The idea of moving it to LGIP or taking money out of LGIP, like we said before, is that you can do it literally within overnight,
Right.
24 to 48 hours. But we want to not move it to the LGIP just yet until the auditor has gone over it and make sure that it's all accurate. We feel that it will, but it's also money that is there in the bank, and we could use it if we had to for a grant or something like that for our portion.
For a match.
The match,
And
the
so-
match.
Yes.
The main reason for moving it to the LGIP at this point is because the interest is going back up, as we all know. And so the village is collecting more money off the interest rate in the LGIP.
Thank you.
Counselor Murray, do you have a
Thank
question?
you, Mayor, and that includes everything prior to last year. I mean, we've had some excess amounts from previous years. That's everything we've had up to date.
No. Prior years, I think didn't we have something like $4 million
Well, that
in LGIP?
excluding the LGIP before we got to that point, but last couple of years, I think we've had some excesses,
We've been averaging fund balances of in excess of $300,000 a year. This year, we more than exceeded that fund balance.
Okay. So I need to go to Ex Novo more times then, right?
Yes.
Well, I don't want to influence your decision, but it doesn't hurt. Okay, so I need a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve the budget for FY 22-23.
Okay, so I have a motion to approve resolution 22-41. Do I have a second? Counselor Miera. Okay, any further comments before we vote? Okay, Counselor Murray, how do you vote?
Aye.
Counselor Burkett, how do you
Aye.
vote? Counselor Knight,
Aye.
Counselor Woolman,
Aye.
Counselor Miera.
Yes.
Okay. So we only had that one item. Okay, so now we go to new business and we're going to consideration action approval of liquor license for Sandia Bar. Troy, were you going to speak to that? Oh, excuse me. Oh, there you are. Yeah, well, you can make some comments. Yeah.
My name, good evening, Mr. Mayor, good evening, councilors. My name is Mark Rhodes. I'm a liquor license attorney. And I've been doing this far too long. This is a relatively simple transaction. I represented the seller 23 years ago. When he opened the Pizzeria Uno in Las Cruces. He operated that until about 2018, closed it down. He's in retirement. He elected to sell the license. Mr. Howard called me and said, I would like to reopen the Sandia Bar, but do it in a way that represents what I feel about my community, because he and his wife are two of the three owners. The third owner is Kim Stewart, who's been here for 14 years. And they basically said, we want an establishment that reflects our pride in our hometown. It's a very straightforward transfer. That facility has had liquor forever, but it had it in a different context. It had a different type of license. The license that they previously had at Sandia Bar was what was called a full dispenser. Full dispenser, without belaboring the history of liquor licensing, and I've done it almost as long as the licenses have been around, allowed for package as well as by the drink. Once a license gets transferred out of where it was originally issued, it's called an interlocal dispenser, loses its package. This particular license is an interlocal. It has no package. It will be solo. Sorry, my wife is from Peru. I tend to think in Spanish sometimes. It will be only by the drink.
Any questions from the council? Yes, Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. Yeah, could you explain what they call the interlocal district and why you're transferring from Las Cruces up to Corrales?
Yes. How detailed do you want? Because I mean, I've literally been doing this 35 years.
Well, Cliff Notes would work.
Just basically the basics.
Yeah.
In the beginning, and it's not an antagonistic reference to the Bible, but in the beginning of liquor licensing throughout the state, when the Liquor Control Act was adopted in 1981, they gave the option to districts across the state whether they would go wet or dry. The overwhelming majority decided that they wanted alcohol. There were different elections where people could decide whether they wanted restaurant licenses, because that was an adaptation when dispenser and interlocals got too expensive. They created a separate beer and wine, or what's really officially called a restaurant liquor license. Interlocal districts, I'm trying to think about how to do this without belaboring liquor license law. When there was a shift in demand after 1981. There were 2 licenses issued in 1981. One was a retailer, and those, quite frankly, were only for grocery stores. There is only 72 of them now. They're over $1 million. They're fully transferable package. That's the only one that is transferable with package. The second class was a dispenser license. That was issued originally based on a quota of 1 license per 2,000 people. What happened is between 1981 and about 1990, 2000, there was a complete shift throughout the state in terms of population. And areas like Las Cruces that had originally 21 licenses no longer have the ability to meet the demand. And areas like Santa Fe didn't necessarily want package licenses, but they had a huge demand for by the drink. So the legislature made a compromise. If you transfer an original dispenser based on a population basis, you lose package. That was a significant reduction in value. Because what happened is at about the same time they did that, the market shifted. You went from franchises like Bennigan's and Chili's and whatnot to box stores, CVS Pharmacy, small chains in New Mexico, Pickwick, Allsup's, all Costco. All of those people came into the market at a time where they didn't need package. They didn't need, buy the drink, they need package. So there became a huge demand. What the legislature did is basically said, these only by the drink licenses, these IODs are fully transferable throughout the state. And that's what happens. That is, by the drink licenses are fully transferable. Retailer licenses are fully transferable without affecting essentially their value or their ability to serve. All other licenses are restricted. I'm getting way beyond, I think, your specific question, but does this help in any way? I can go into.
Well,
Is it more confusing? Am I getting?
Well, that's all right. I'm confused easily anyway, so.
No, I don't think you're confused easily.
No, I was just, I was also curious too, as to, this probably directed to Mr. Howard. We're not gonna have any live music or disturbing lights that will distract from.
I've been doing this so long that no one that I've ever met that's an elected official wants to hear from the attorney. So. He's shy and doesn't want to speak, so I did the majority of that.
So I can answer any questions about the bar itself if you like.
Well, yeah, I'm sure the PNC's probably asked these questions, but the patio area that you're advertising, and like we're fighting right now with the Salt Yard West, is they have more or less an outdoor venue. Loud music is really disturbing.
We have no desire to have any of that stuff. We want to work cohesive with the village. So we have no desire to do any of that stuff.
Okay, and
We're actually closing much earlier than they were before for that aspect as well.
okay, about what time are you thinking about?
Midnights.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and it was just lighting, as long as, it doesn't disturb the neighbors,
Correct. And I know that the village does have a dark sky
Right.
that has to be followed as well. That was brought up at PNZ, so we will be following those rules as
Okay.
well.
Thank you. I
Yes,
appreciate
certainly.
it. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're excited for your plans here.
Thank you.
I had a couple questions. Do you have a time frame as to when you might be? I know we approved previously the expansion of the property, that kind of thing. Do you have a
Correct.
time frame for opening?
We're right now, we're hoping for April, May opening,
Okay.
but it's all based on materials and supply demand. So, but that's our goal.
And will the basic structure stay the same?
The
With-
basic
with-
structure of
with
the
the
bar
upstairs.
will stay the same.
Okay.
We are doing a small expansion off to the south side,
Right.
which is going to be enclosed. And we're expanding to the west, which is going to be some new restrooms and an office. But the bar itself, we're keeping.
Good. Thank you.
Yes.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm actually going to add something which, as a younger lawyer, I was told never to do after.
If you won your argument.
When you counted the votes, you were already there.
Well, the thing is that I don't plan on retiring anytime soon, although kind of soon, I'm getting old. The license, the operator can restrict the hours. But so you know, in the interest of complete transparency, the license is regulated by state law, and they can open, they have to have all the liquor off the tables by 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
If what happens, and I'm not contradicting Mr. Howard, I assume he will in fact do exactly what he says, but if business changed and he had to stay open, I don't want anyone ever saying, you stood there and listened to him tell us it was going to close at midnight. Sure. That's it.
Can I ask a general question?
Sure.
Is there a finite number of liquor licenses in the state?
Yes.
And therefore the price, is a
Well,
supply demand kind of a.
yes and no. This is like, I also lobby, and this is sort of like a highly sensitive issue. Because quota licenses were the ones that were established in 1981. This is a quota license, a retailer, the full dispenser, those are all quota. Craft distilleries, craft breweries, restaurant licenses, all those are non-quota licenses. So if you asked me that question 15 years ago, I would say absolutely, and I can tell you the number. Now what's happening is non-quota licenses, if you count the number of breweries that are open, are rapidly getting to the point they equal the number of quotas.
Okay.
Thank you.
How do you vote, Stuart?
Aye.
Councilor Burkett,
Aye.
Councilor Knight,
Aye.
Councilor Woolman,
Aye.
Councilor Mira.
Yes.
Thank you all, I appreciate it. As does Mr.
Yes.
Howard. That's a-
Wait a second. We did have a motion on that, didn't we?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No motion.
So moved.
Okay,
Okay, so
I make
let's-
a motion that we.
Okay, so now we have a motion and a
I'll
second.
second that.
I guess I got carried away with your dissertation. So how do you vote, Councilor Mira?
Yes.
Councilor Woolman,
Aye.
Councilor Knight,
Aye.
Councilor Burkett,
Yes.
Councilor Murray.
Yes, but I got one on you now.
Yeah.
And there's one other thing, Ms. Romero is incredibly professional, like to me. We appreciate it.
That's
We
the
all
way,
do.
that's the way she is, and we all appreciate her.
When I was younger, I was just straight up sucking up, but as I get older.
Okay, so the next is resolution 22-43, publication of a notice of meeting and intent to consider adoption of ordinance 2203, amending village code 1830 regarding general regulations and fences. So do I have a motion to publish and post?
So moved.
So we have a motion to publish and post the resolution 22-43 directing the publication of a notice of a meeting to an intent to consider adoption of an ordinance amendment to the Village Code 1830. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion. Yes, ma'am.
Do we need to amend the date on there before we vote on approving it?
Well, we're going to bring it to the floor.
Okay,
Okay, so now we have a motion and a second. We have to change the dates. Is that the one we changed the dates on?
yes.
So we have to have an amendment to the dates because we've.
Yeah, it says 16th and it should be 19th.
Should be 23rd
23rd.
because we're not going to meet on the 16th.
Okay.
Okay, that's it. But that's actually on the ordinance itself, not the resolution, but we need to change that on the draft ordinance.
I'll make sure it gets changed when we publish the notice.
Say again?
When we publish the notice, I'll change the date
Okay.
in the notice.
All right. And that's just because we're not having a meeting. There's, we're not going to be here on the 16th. So does anybody have any discussion, any questions, any issues they want to raise? Okay, how do you vote?
I'd like to thank Councilor Burkett for his perseverance and bringing this to the floor. It's a big task. It's welcome. So thank you.
I would say that, I don't know, you heard probably in previous discussion that there were members of the council who were opposed to telling people what kind of fences they could build. And I was one of those people. I don't like people telling me what kind of fences to build. I don't have any problem with the height. But, I certainly don't want to tell people how to build their fences. But I don't have any problem if you guys vote for this. It's okay. It's a law.
I mean, this is already the law, correct? We're only currently
Correct.
addressing what
You're
is
amending it. You're amending some discrepancies that we discovered.
correct.
Yes.
Because our definition of front setback does not properly align with the intent of this.
Yes. Okay.
Good,
How do you vote,
can talk
Councilor
to my
Mira?
wife.
Yes.
Counselor Woolman?
Aye.
Counselor Knight?
Aye.
Counselor Burkett?
Aye.
And Counselor Murray?
Aye.
Very good. Okay. Wow. All right, so let's move on to action and approval resolution 22-44, adopting the 2024-2028 infrastructure capital improvement plan. Now, Mel, you had a question? And you
Yeah,
wanted-
it's kind
you
of a
wanted-
statement that my number one, living on the west side, if we have torrential rains over there, we have huge problems with our roads. And when I've talked to Michael before, he said, that Steve Rollman has looked at a couple of the roads over there and he has plans to help with the water, not destroying people's properties. And this is roads that are public roads, not private roads. These are public roads. And I just feel as though, we just had a big, huge conversation about maintenance on the siphon. Well, we need to maintain those roads up there and, improve them. And it was just hard to see that it was 20 and 21 when, electric car stations was 13. I mean, and then we need those, but again, I'm looking at my district and being on the west side, but when it rains hard, those roads, Michael has to go down with these big earth movers and move all the sand that's coming off of those. And I just wish it was higher up.
Okay. Take it into consideration, but you need to realize the important thing is on the ICIP. And being on the ICP is the most important part because it doesn't really make any difference where it is. I mean, we were focusing on the top 5 perhaps. I mean, that's what I saw, because there's 27.
Right.
And, but the fact that it's there doesn't mean it's not going to get anything. It's going to be considered. In fact, we were talking about that today, about reclining acres, for example. And so those things are going to be addressed and they're going to be dealt with. They just may not be dealt with by the legislature per se. Okay, there are other sources of funds that we are considering and we're working for. We're looking into, to end my sentence with a preposition. Anyone else? Yes, sir, Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilor. Yeah, we might, like I was noticing too on the vote too, the reason I more or less moved some of these higher dollar items like the Parks and Rec and the drains, some of these things that are not shovel ready yet. I think that I tend to push them down further in the list because we need, if we're going to put them up there and they're going to be in the top 5, they need to be shovel ready. They should be approved by the site development plan and they should be ready to go. So when we go up to, and I'm sure Parks and Rec will probably be there, given by what you've said in the past. That was why I kind of pushed some of that down in my list, but I was trying to get every department a little bit of, maybe some money, fire suppression, police department, get their cars, public works equipment that, might need. That was more or less my reasoning, the way I voted, the way I did.
So guys, you don't need a reason for the way you vote. You don't have to tell me why you voted, which, I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
We're asking for funds. We're trying to get direction on where to focus it. That doesn't mean we're not going to ask for funds for these things. We're going to look for them and we're going to try to match them up with sources of funds. And if we get legislative funds, sometimes it depends on how the legislature feels that day as to who they'll give money to. Ask Councilor Meir.
Well, and I think one of the things we should be looking at, and I think Councilor Meir brought this up, it is that some things like the wastewater and or the flooding should be a statewide type issue where we can go out there and say, look, it's not happening just here in Corrales, it happens everywhere else, but we have these issues and we should elevate this up to maybe not a local issue, but a statewide issue.
Well, I believe the infrastructure issue is a statewide issue. I mean, it's one of the big focuses is on, fire suppression is also a big focus. Highways, roads are always the focus, and infrastructure, water and sewer. Those are big items. You know that.
Yeah.
So
I think maybe what we need to hear is that we're just not going to give them the first 5. We're going to give them this list.
we're going to
right?
give them the whole list.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
There they could take, they can make that.
If
determination.
somebody walks up to me and says, well, what do you really want? Well, I want to finish the new gym. That's Park and Rec. I want to get fire suppression. I don't want to have a fire in the bosque. I mean, those are the kinds of, it's sort of like when you're campaigning, you have a certain number of things that you want to, hit quick bullet points that you want people to remember. And with a list of 27, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
But when they have times to sit there and put their money, cobble their money together and then distribute it to the different municipalities they represent, we may start seeing money coming into various places. Maybe the ones that aren't as big, like the Performing Arts Center, whatever it is, $5 million. Right. So yeah, don't sweat that. It'll happen. We'll get the money. It just may not be as much as we'd like for everything. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. Once we got the votes from all the counselors, how do we do this ranking? Because there's 2 items that stick out to me. One is Angel Hill and the other is the interior drain project. Both of them were listed only by 2 counselors, number 4 for one counselor, number 5 for the other counselor. So they had the exact same votes, but one of them is number 4 and the other one's number 21 or 22 with the exact same votes from the counselors.
So I'm not going to tell Melanie how she did it, but what I had suggested when I saw it is we didn't get everybody to vote for everything. And so I said, well, tabulate the top 5 and then just fill in with the rest.
Well, I mean, so Angel Hill and interior drain should have had the exact same tabulation, but there's 17 spots or 18 spots between them.
Anything that came into question, I went with Mayor Fahey's ranking on the list.
Okay.
Okay. Can we send it to Santa Fe? All right. How do you vote, Councilor
Yes.
Meir? Councilor Waldman?
Aye.
Do we have a
We
motion?
have a motion.
Oh, I need a motion. Gosh, you guys.
No, I got you on that one.
Okay, I need a motion. Please.
So moved.
Yeah, that's the easy way, isn't it?
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second adopting the 2024-2028 Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan, the ICIP. How do you vote, Councilor Meir?
Yes, sir.
Councilor Waldman?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Burkett?
Aye.
Councilor Murray?
You betcha.
Okay. And I want you to write that down just that way. You betcha.
You betcha. You got it.
Okay. You're gonna make me seasick. Okay, so future agenda items. Let me get back to my blank sheet here, paper here. So the next meeting is actually a special meeting, the one on the 26th to deal with the firecracker, the fireworks, because in order to fit within the 30 days coverage for the next meeting, we have to redo it again next week. And then the other one is to meet the requirements of getting our budget in to Santa Fe before the 31st of July. Raina has done a yeoman's task in trying to put all this data together, as you can see by the thickness of this document. And she has like 2 more things left to finish.
Yeah, she needs us to approve the asset list and the fourth quarter report for her. So she can.
And
get
so
those
then
turned in.
that will be, that's what we're going to discuss on the 26th. And then that hopefully will be passed and go into Santa Fe. And then the council meeting was switched to August 23rd because similar time constraints on other items that we have coming up. So remember this come whenever we decide about meetings. We really do need to have 2 meetings a month. There's too many things that back up. And we sit there and try to figure out, well, which thing do we need to get to? If you guys have an item you want to bring up, we have to sort of, I mean, here it is, 8 o'clock. We've been here an hour and a half. We're not through yet. We're close. Well, we are real close, but you know, that's the thing. We want to have time for discussion and we don't want people to get tired and just, you know, push it through. So we will have a meeting on July 26th, and then we've changed the August meeting to August 23rd. Both will be at 6:30. Does anybody have any problem? Yes, ma'am.
You know, I'll probably just be on a Zoom meeting because I had made plans for that week thinking that we didn't have a meeting.
Right.
So, but I'll be here on Zoom.
Zoom's fine. We're going to be doing
Yeah.
hybrids for a while.
Yep, we can do Zoom, not a problem.
Yeah, given what Tanya's told us about this COVID thing, we're going to be doing Zooms for a while. Does anybody else have anything that they want to say or talk about? Yes, sir, Stuart. I knew
Just
you'd
quick,
raise your hand.
You know, the way Steve talked about the tip process and so forth, I think if we want to submit anything this coming session for improvements in the corrals, like you were talking about with 448 and so forth, we need to probably draw up something.
I think it's worthwhile to ask that question. I
Yeah.
think that was a very good thing that you did in getting him here because there may be something. We may be able to put pressure on DOT without really, you know, putting
Yeah.
pressure on them. The state Main Street also may help us there because they're concerned that they've already spent a lot of money here in the village and nothing's happened.
Right.
So we may be able to get something.
I think we ought to
Something
have some
produced.
discussion, at least with, you know, the MRMPO and at least get that ball rolling. That way, when we
Okay.
submit, when he asks for.
Well, we should realize that there are rules you have to follow.
Sure.
And he didn't, you know, he may not have covered them all. That's why I asked that question about roads, you know, specific roads. And so we just need to know what the rules are, because once we found out the rules about 448, when they told us, we said, we don't want that. And so we'll just have to
Sure.
see what we can put together. Because I know everybody in the village wants to have a pathway now. Yes, Zach.
2 topics maybe for future discussion. I don't know, either one's super time sensitive, but one is the e-bike and motorized vehicle access to the Bosque. We probably need to address that.
I think we're going to address that soon. I don't know if we're going to, I guess we might have to do an ordinance or zone, something like ordinance change amendment.
And that'll be an interesting balance of accessibility versus safety
Yeah.
because
E-bike and, see,
I mean,
motorcycles are already covered on the existing.
Yes, but e-bike and skateboards, especially the single-wheeled skateboards are, I got a neighbor that has one, and he rolls up and down my street probably as fast as the speed limit.
Yeah, those are
With
motorized
e-bikes, though,
things.
Is there an
aren't they?
ADA concern with e-bikes, eliminating e-bikes from
Well,
access? Is there an ADA concern with that? Because I think we would be limiting people's access to.
We will ask. Yes, Mel.
You know, I remember this discussion when Mrs. Hashimoto came up here and talked about, and we had a vote. And I had just got my e-bike and I had a vote no, but really that is not, I think there was a discussion that says, because that's like federal land, that you really can't determine what can go in there and what can't go
I
in
think
there.
Chief has a comment too. That's
Yes, chief, you want to come talk? I don't know that it's federal land. It's MRGCD land.
Inside the Bosque area?
Yes,
But it's not our land.
Right.
it's MRGCD.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, councilors. So as you know, I'm like the liaison at the Corrales Bosque Advisory Commission meeting. This has been a topic of discussion for a while now. It's our understanding under the Bosque Advisory Commission, the ordinance, that's law, is that, I forget what line item it is on prohibited uses, no motorized vehicles. And so it's already law. They're classifying motorized vehicles as motorcycles, go-karts, e-bikes, because they have a motor that drive them, and some of the one wheels that we're starting to see. So
Just a
I just
sub,
wanted to re-clarify that's what we're going off of based
Okay.
on our ordinance, but that might be a question maybe for legal and interpretation, or maybe the opportunity that we revisit that and.
We're going to review it. Yes,
You know, I
Yes.
think we should.
yes. Counselor
I
Burkett.
agree. I mean, we had a gentleman in here several months ago with a motorized wheelchair specifically requesting access to the Bosque, which we said we would grant, and we should have said we would grant, and found a way to make that happen. It seems like there's a gray area there because that's also a motorized vehicle. So somebody that's not capable of pedaling their bike distances, do they have a limitation that we're keeping them from enjoying the same thing that other people who don't have that limitation are?
And some of the concerns that are coming up with this, and I'm sure this, we'll discuss this more in detail in later meetings, but there's also, it was news to me that they have e-bikes now that exceed 20 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, it wasn't just a category, you know, maybe when they first came out, they were pedal assisted.
Yeah.
But now we're starting to see these high speed, you know, throttle assisted electric e-bikes. And so that's a concern. Yeah.
Right, agree.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we have completed the agenda,
Mayor,
and I'm going to
Mayor.
adjourn the meeting.
Oh, bit of a tough break, buddy.
Oh, gosh, you weren't recognized.
Tough break.
Oh, my goodness.
hammer came down.
Hammer came down.
That's right. He rules with an iron fist.